The night the city's most powerful CEO hosted his annual charity gala, no one noticed the janitor polishing the marble floor beneath the crystal chandeliers, a single father named Daniel Reed whose life had taught him to move quietly, to take up as little space as possible, because space had never been offered to him freely. Daniel had lost his wife years ago to illness, and every night after putting his young son to sleep, he worked late shifts cleaning offices and event halls, believing dignity wasn't about applause but about showing up even when no one clapped. And on this particular night, the ballroom glittered with wealth, silk gowns, tailored suits, laughter that sounded expensive, and among the guests was the CEO's daughter, Elena Hawthorne, a young woman dressed in midnight blue, elegant and composed, her eyes unfocused yet calm, blind since childhood, guided by sound and intuition rather than sight, known in elite circles as fragile, untouchable, a symbol of tragedy. Wrapped in privilege, Daniel noticed her not because of her status, but because she stood alone near the orchestra, listening, swaying slightly to the music as if feeling it through the floor, and when a server nearly collided with her, Daniel instinctively stepped forward, steadying her arm, apologizing softly even though it wasn't his fault, and Elena smiled, not the polite smile of society, but a genuine one that startled him, thanking him for speaking to her like a person rather than a problem to manage. And when the orchestra shifted into a slow waltz, Elena sighed and said quietly that she always loved this song but never danced because no one wanted to risk leading a blind girl onto the floor, and before Daniel could stop himself, he said he could dance, his voice trembling not from fear but from memory, because dancing had once been how he made his late wife laugh in their small kitchen, and Elena asked if he was sure, and Daniel nodded, forgetting for a moment the guests. The rules, the invisible walls between janitors and CEOs, and he led her onto the floor, guiding her steps with gentle pressure and whispered counts, and something extraordinary happened. Elena didn't stumble, didn't hesitate, she trusted him completely, and the room slowly fell silent as heads turned, whispers spreading like fire through dry grass, because a janitor was dancing with the CEO's blind daughter, and it wasn't clumsy or pitiful, it was beautiful, intimate, human, and Elena laughed softly, saying she felt like everyone else for the first time, while Daniel felt the weight of every I yet refused to let go, because letting go would mean admitting he didn't belong, and across the room, her father, Richard Hawthorne, froze, rage and disbelief flashing across his face as he pushed through the crowd, memories crashing into him harder than any scandal ever could, because years ago, before he was a billionaire, before the empire, he had been a man desperate for success, and the night Elena lost her sight had been the night he chose a risky, illegal shortcut to secure a deal, cutting corners, ignoring warnings about faulty equipment at a construction site, a decision that caused an accident, a fire, and the toxic smoke that damaged his daughter's eyes forever, a truth buried under settlements and silence. And as he watched Daniel guide Elena with patience and care, Richard saw something he had never given her, freedom without fear, and when he stormed onto the dance floor, guests braced for humiliation, security moved closer, and Daniel prepared himself to be fired, escorted out, banned, but instead Richard stopped inches away, his voice breaking as he demanded to know who Daniel was, and Daniel answered honestly, saying he was just a janitor and a father, and that Elena deserved to dance if she wanted to, and the room held its breath as Richard's mask cracked, tears filling the eyes of a man who owned everything yet had carried one unforgivable loss, and in a moment that shocked the entire gala, Richard confessed aloud, not in legal language or PR spin, but in raw truth, admitting his greed had cost his daughter her sight, admitting the empire was built on that night, and the silence that followed was heavier than applause, guests stunned, cameras forgotten, and Elena reached out, touching her father's face, saying softly that she had always known he was hiding something, and that what hurt most wasn't the blindness, but being treated as breakable, and she thanked Daniel for seeing her when others wouldn't, and Richard did the unthinkable. He apologized, not only to his daughter but to the room, announcing that the foundation funding the gala would now be run independently, that victims of corporate negligence would be compensated, and that Daniel Reed was no longer a janitor as of that moment, but the director of community outreach for the foundation, because a man who could lead without seeing status was the kind of man the world needed. And as applause finally erupted, Daniel stood frozen, thinking of his son asleep at home, of nights spent scrubbing floors, of dignity earned in silence now recognized in light, and Elena squeezed his hand, whispering that sometimes the right dance partner could change everything, and as the music resumed, the gala transformed from a display of wealth into a reckoning of truth, proving that power doesn't come from money or vision, but from courage, humility, and the willingness to step onto the floor when the world tells you to stay invisible. And if this story moved you, inspired you, or reminded you that kindness can rewrite destinies, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because more powerful, life-changing stories like this are coming, and your support helps them reach the people who need them most.